King Charles III made a decision so striking, so deeply personal, that even those closest to the crown were left speechless. He reached into the very heart of his marriage, took a crown long associated with Queen Camilla.
She was once the woman who waited in the wings, certain that one day the crown would be hers, and when it finally arrived, she wore it with a kind of hard-earned pride. But in the strange, carefully choreographed world of royal fame, the biggest victories can come with the most unsettling aftertaste. The Queen Consort, who stood by King Charles through scandal, humiliation, and decades of being judged against the memory of Princess Diana, may now be facing a new and very modern threat: irrelevance. The palace rarely admits to internal friction, yet the mood around Buckingham Palace is starting to feel like a quiet earthquake, a shift in gravity that no amount of pomp can disguise. The twist is that the woman at the center of the king's long game reportedly isn't his wife at all. It's Catherine, Princess of Wales, the royal superstar whose popularity has become the monarchy's most bankable currency. To see how we got here, you have to rewind to the moment Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles made it official. When they married on April 9, 2005 at Windsor Guildhall, the public reaction was, at best, frosty. Diana's absence was still a presence, and the national mood hadn't exactly warmed to the idea of Camilla stepping into any version of Diana's shadow. With polls showing open disapproval and the establishment on edge, Clarence's house offered a promise designed to calm the waters. When Charles became king, Camilla would not be styled as queen, but as princess consort. It sounded like humility, a concession to public feeling, a softer landing. The problem was that it was never truly a thing. There's no real historical or legal footing for princess consort, and under the traditional understanding of monarchy, the wife of a reigning king is, quite simply, queen. In hindsight, that early pledge looks less like a permanent plan and more like a public relations patch, meant to get everyone through a difficult chapter without sparking a full-blown revolt. Fast forward to May 6, 2023, and that earlier promise was effectively filed away without fanfare. Coronation Day arrived, and Camilla entered Westminster Abbey as Queen Consort, taking part in the full Church of England ceremony, anointed with holy oil, crowned and enthroned. Yet the cameras, as always, caught the subtext as much as the spectacle. Commentators dissected everything from seating to styling, and one British historian drew attention to an image that instantly lit up royal chatter: Prince William and Catherine appearing squeezed to the side, as if the production had been staged to underline a single message. This was Charles and Camilla's show, and everyone else was supporting cast. Even the fashion rules reinforced the point. At Charles's request, no one besides the king and queen consort was permitted to wear crowns or tiaras. Catherine and Princess Charlotte instead wore embroidered floral headpieces, a choice that made it impossible for the Princess of Wales, arguably the most photographed and beloved royal of her generation, to steal the scene from the woman finally getting her moment. And yet there was a surprise consequence. In trying to dim Catherine's shine in front of a global audience, the palace didn't erase her glow, it only delayed the inevitable. A billion viewers still saw her, still read the symbolism, and for many, the sides were already being chosen. In the background, some observers claimed the atmosphere around Camilla was icy, noting how little warmth she seemed to receive as she passed, and how the guest count optics were scrutinized too, with talk that Camilla brought a sizable Parker Bowles contingent while the Middletons were far fewer. In royal watching, even family seating can turn into a headline. That brings us to the relationship royal fans can't stop analyzing: Charles and Catherine. Palace watchers have long whispered that their bond isn't just polite, it's genuinely warm, and it also happens to be extremely useful for an institution obsessed with continuity. Then, in 2024, Charles made a move that landed like a message in neon. He granted Catherine a rare, high-profile honor, one that royal commentator Justin Vovic framed as a very public show of support that Princess Diana never really received from the late Queen. Charles appointed Catherine Colonel of the Irish Guards, a prestigious military role loaded with tradition and symbolism. It wasn't simply a ceremonial ribbon for the scrapbook. It was the king elevating his daughter-in-law in a way the public could instantly understand. On the same day, he appointed Camilla Grand Master of the Order of the British Empire. Both roles matter, but the optics were impossible to ignore. Catherine's appointment felt rooted in the monarchy's martial history and future-facing imagery, while Camilla's read is more formal, more decorative. Social media did what it always does, turned nuance into a viral verdict. TikTok and Twitter filled with side-by-side comparisons, YouTube channels racked up millions of views within 2 days, and the consensus among many online commentators was blunt. Charles was building Catherine's stature in a way that would be hard to roll back. This didn't look like routine royal housekeeping. It looked like a father and a king mapping out a legacy. With his health frequently questioned in public conversation, and the future of the monarchy tied so tightly to William and Catherine, Charles appears determined to strengthen the next reign, even if it makes the present one feel awkward for Camilla. And just when the palace seemed to be settling into its new normal, a media moment reignited the intrigue. In January 2026, a Times Magazine feature sent shockwaves through royal circles by placing Catherine front and center under a headline that read, "Arise, Queen Kate." Online, the subheading added fuel: "Kate will be a queen who listens." The piece leaned on information attributed to palace insiders and friends close to the Princess of Wales, sketching out how she could modernize the monarchy and connect with the public in a different way. It was the kind of coverage that feels like both a compliment and a provocation, especially with Charles still on the throne and Camilla still wearing the crown. Royal columnist Amanda Patel openly wondered whether William and Catherine had approved the interviews behind the feature, and she floated the question many were thinking but few would say out loud. Did all this glowing talk about Catherine's future queenship land as a pointed snub to the current queen? Timing only amplified the drama. Catherine had recently returned to public work after cancer treatment, and her popularity was soaring. Polling in April 2024 placed her as the most popular royal, and she reportedly drew the highest number of UK Google searches that year. Against that backdrop, a major publication essentially previewing Queen Kate didn't read as accidental. It read bold and possibly deliberate. Numbers made the tension feel even sharper. Polls showed William and Catherine with striking approval ratings, 77% and 74%, while King Charles sat in 4th place and Queen Camilla in 7th. Insiders claimed Camilla felt increasingly sidelined and at times panicked by Catherine's rise, particularly during high-visibility holiday events where the public's attention naturally gravitates toward the Waleses. The irony is almost cinematic. Camilla, who endured years of backlash to reach the position she holds today, now finds herself unsettled by a woman who has never publicly attacked her, never played the scandal game, and rarely gives critics anything to grab onto. Catherine's power is quiet, built on composure and restraint, and that makes it even harder to fight. True to form, the palace offered no dramatic rebuttal to the time's moment. But in royal life, silence is often the loudest statement of all. The quiet after that article felt like its own kind of announcement, because everyone understands the looming question. What happens when William becomes king? Camilla's title may be queen consort now, but it is not designed to last forever. When William ascends, Catherine automatically steps into the role as Queen Catherine, often described in modern terms as queen consort, crowned alongside her husband, and positioned as the monarchy's leading woman in the way Camilla is today. Catherine won't have to wrestle anyone for that status. History hands it to her. The more delicate issue is what Camilla is called in the next chapter. The most logical, historically respectful option would be Queen Dowager, a title that acknowledges her time beside Charles while clearly separating her from the new queen. There's precedent for the palace choosing clarity over sentiment. After King George VI died in 1952, his widow became known as Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother to prevent confusion with her daughter, Queen Elizabeth II. But Camilla is not the mother of the future king, so that particular solution doesn't fit. Queen Dowager, meaning a former queen, is the cleaner answer, and clean labeling is something the monarchy prizes above personal comfort. Sources have suggested Camilla hoped the transition would come with softer edges, a smoother handover, a more explicit guarantee of her place in the future order, even clarity around her public visibility and living arrangements after Charles. But reports claim those requests were firmly turned down, not necessarily out of malice, but out of the institution's instinct to protect the crown as an idea rather than any one person who wears it. The monarchy at its core is a brand built on continuity. When forced to choose between the present and the future, it will almost always privilege the next chapter. For Camilla, that can't help but sting. She fought for decades to reach the pinnacle, only to face the likelihood that once Charles is gone, she will be carefully reclassified, still respected, but unmistakably moved out of the spotlight. No discussion of this power shift works without acknowledging the lasting gravitational pull of Diana, Princess of Wales. She helped the world fall in love with the royal family in a new way, and her death nearly shattered that bond. For almost 30 years, Charles has lived under the weight of her legacy, and the public has never entirely let him off the hook. Every major royal moment, coronations, anniversaries, Christmas broadcasts, inevitably triggers the old comparisons. Diana versus Camilla, the fairy tale versus the aftermath. Now, in a twist that feels like history looping back, Charles is shaping how a new Princess of Wales is presented to the public, and he appears determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Royal expert Vic noted that Charles's visible backing of Catherine is the kind of support Diana didn't truly get, not from Charles and not, in key moments, from the late Queen. Put plainly, Charles is publicly reinforcing Catherine's position before she even needs the protection, building her reputation like scaffolding around the future. Some analysts read it as a form of atonement, an attempt to ensure the next Princess of Wales is prepared, shielded, and validated by the monarch himself. Media language around Catherine has only intensified that impression. The Daily Telegraph described her as the monarchy's greatest asset, and another writer dubbed her the jewel in the crown, the sort of phrase that doesn't just flatter, it signals trust. Public recognition has followed. From 2023 through 2026, The Independent placed Catherine among the most influential people, and Time magazine named her a runner-up for Person of the Year in 2024. Her storyline has shifted dramatically from shy newcomer to global figure, and it happened while she navigated cancer, fought her way back to health, and continued raising 3 children with fierce control over their privacy. In celebrity terms, it's the kind of narrative that earns loyalty, the glamorous icon who also feels human. With Charles's support, that narrative has become part of the monarchy's future-facing identity, even if it comes at Camilla's expense. And the uncomfortable truth for Camilla is that popularity in a modern monarchy is power. It's not measured in medals or titles so much as approval ratings and attention. By that standard, Camilla is fighting a battle she cannot win. The Royal Observer pointed out how striking it is that the sitting queen ranks 7th in popularity within her own family. In a political organization, that would trigger emergency meetings. In the palace, it shows up more subtly. Who takes the prime balcony position? Who dominates official photographs? Whose appointments become headline news? Catherine's influence has continued to stack up. In May 2025, she was named to the Time 100 Health list for her work raising cancer awareness, further expanding her identity beyond fashion and ceremony into something more substantive. Her openness about her illness reshaped public perception, making her seem less like a perfectly managed symbol and more like a relatable woman who endured something frightening and came back steadier. Camilla, to her credit, has put real energy into causes, particularly advocacy against domestic abuse and sexual violence. Yet her image remains complicated because the origin story of her relationship with Charles still follows her like a shadow. The affair during Charles's marriage to Diana remains a cultural scar for many, and even after years of careful reputation rebuilding, acceptance often comes with a quiet hesitation. The reality is that Camilla could do everything flawlessly from this point forward and still not match Catherine's popularity, because some roles inside this family are biological, emotional, and historical. Catherine is the mother of the future king, and she became the public's preferred symbol of royal continuity long before any crown was ever placed on anyone's head. Even now, YouTube thumbnails and trending headlines say what official statements won't. Catherine drives the clicks, the chatter, and the fascination. Algorithms, which simply mirror human interest at scale, have effectively crowned their favorite already. Camilla may wear the crown today, but in the public imagination, the next one belongs to someone else. So what does all of this mean for the monarchy's next era? Yes, there will be an official coronation for Queen Catherine one day, grand, historic, and broadcast to billions. But many royal historians argue the real coronation is already unfolding in slow motion, in every strategic appointment, every carefully framed appearance, every glossy magazine cover, and every YouGov poll that widens the gap between the present and the future. When William becomes king, Catherine will occupy the same functional space Camilla holds now, but the public will see it differently. Camilla's queenship arrived with baggage and controversy. Catherine's appears to be arriving with institutional investment and widespread affection cultivated over years. The final decisions about Camilla's long-term title and role will depend on precedent, practicality, and how a 21st century monarchy manages public sentiment while insisting it is above it. Yet the direction of travel looks unmistakable. The palace is listening to what people respond to, and it's betting on the figure it believes can carry the story forward. Charles, despite the enduring controversy around his personal life, may ultimately be remembered as the king who tried to secure a smooth transition. By elevating Catherine and validating her while he still reigns, he's doing something the previous era didn't do decisively enough, preparing the next reign openly, rather than leaving it to chance or to internal influence battles. As of January 2025, Catherine is reported to be in remission. She has returned to duties with a focus on early childhood development, mental health, and environmental issues, stepping back into the spotlight with composure that reads less like performance and more like resolve. She didn't turn illness into a sympathy campaign. She turned recovery into purpose, and that has made her feel bigger than any jewel-encrusted crown. Meanwhile, Camilla's reported desire for a guaranteed, protected, less visible role after Charles was said to be refused, not as punishment, but in service of clarity. The monarchy looks forward, not backward, and the next chapter has a face that everyone from the king to the public to the global press already recognizes. The crown will pass when it passes, but the question of who will shape the monarchy's future feels in many ways already answered: Catherine. If you stuck with this story to the end, you're clearly as fascinated by royal backstage dynamics as I am. Do you think Camilla deserves more credit for enduring the storm to reach the throne, or is Catherine simply the right woman for what's coming? Drop your take in the comments, and if this deep dive gave you something to think about, give it a like and subscribe for more conversations like this.